So with that, we're going to have Eric go ahead and start with his talk on progressive web apps. So give it up for Eric.
Can you all hear me pretty well? If so, I'm going to be on the computer a lot, and it's going to be a kind of a pain to go back and forth. So I'll just talk really loud if that's all right. There we go. Okay, so like Larry said, my name is Eric Barnard. I work at Granular. I'm an engineering manager there. So you'll see some code. You're like, that looks like stuff I used to do in like 2009. I'm a manager. Remember that. So yeah. So one of the things that prompted me to look at this topic is I've been building web apps for a long time. Performance is always something I try to pay attention to, but in a lot of legacy apps that I worked on, that I consulted on, they just seem to grow and get to a point where it seems to be really hard to. Oh, great, we're going to deal with this already. Okay. Anyways, they grow to a point where they're slow, and and it's not just a quick slam dunk set of opportunities to make them faster. So. When service workers kind of came on the scene, I was very interested to see what that might bring to the table from a performance standpoint. So in the context of progressive web apps, what I'm going to be talking today mostly about is seeing how we can make our sites more performant. So if you were coming here to look at how we can do offline first design, I think you might get a little bit of that in here, but that's not quite where my focus is going to go. So, yeah. Real quick before we get started, is anyone actively running service workers in prod today? Yes. All right. No one to heckle me, legitimately at least. So yeah, this is me on a daily basis. You can ask these guys. I tend to move faster than I probably should on some things. So let me show you a quick demo here. So this is my my little demo site here. You can see it's like a business app. It's kind of where my life has mostly been focused on. Got a nice graph here. See if I can zoom in here a little bit. Okay. And what I'm going to show you here is this thing is slow. All right. I do have a service worker rigged up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to disable that for a second here. Just show you, here's what this site looks like when it loads. Ah, dang it. All right, so it's spinning. You can see it there in the corner. Spinning. It just kind of loads. We got assets now, but still, there we go. Right, you see apps like this. Like our time to first paint, it's fantastic. Our time to interactive is miserable, right? So how can we make some improvements on that? Well, as you can see, I've set up a service worker here. I'm going to turn it back on and just bam. We went from, I think when I timed it, when I was in here, we're at probably a full 7 seconds to interactive. Now we're at less than a second. Okay. So how do we get here? How do we accomplish this? Well, I use WorkBox. And so dig in a little bit to what WorkBox is. You need to understand what service workers are. Right? What's the general feeling around understanding service workers? Who feels like they got it? It's rock solid in their brains. How many of you have never heard of a service worker? Cool. Okay. So, how many of you have actually built desktop apps, so outside of browsers, like good old EV6 type things? Yeah. So, in good old desktop programming, you get threads to deal with things, right? And you can do stuff on background threads. So, service workers is one path that the browser is giving you to have a separate thread to do things with. Okay. So, a couple concepts about service workers that are important to understand. So, per URL, per domain, you get one service worker for all the tabs that you might have open in your browser. So, if you're at google.com, google.com is using a service worker, they'll have one service worker. You can have 800 tabs open, but you still get one service worker. So it's a really nice mechanism for being able to communicate between tabs. And for what I'm going to show you later, be able to share data between tabs. Right? So then, if you've heard a little bit about service workers, you might have also heard a little bit about web workers. Okay? Web workers can be confusing if you're not in this every day. But web workers, it kind of goes back to that same concept I was saying about threads. It's also another way you can have a threading model. Web workers are meant more for, I need to do some computational intensive work. I don't want it to consume my single service worker. So I can actually just hand off computationally intensive work to a web worker. I can run as many web workers as I want per tab. But you don't have access in a web worker to like a lot of the things that a service worker does. I'll show you that here in a second. So, and then lastly, why is WorkBox all of a sudden something more special than anything? Well, I don't think it is. But y'all use jQuery before? WorkBox is the jQuery for service workers. Okay. Some people may shoot me for saying that, but in my kind of assessment at this point, service workers are new enough out there that there's still some rough edges, and WorkBox helps you get right to business and accomplish things fairly quickly. Okay. So one of the things I'll show you here in my little code base here. Okay. Is have any of you built a React app or at least run the Create React app recently? Okay, you run Create React app, especially with version 2, and you get WorkBox out of the box. So it will spin up a service worker for you, and sorry, and you can see it. Let me pull this up here. I did this right before here because I wasn't sure about the network. Oh, come on. So this is what a brand new Create React app skeleton looks like. If you open up the source, you've got service worker, and in the cloud output, you can see that's what WorkBox looks like. Right from the center. Okay. Wow, that's awful. Sorry. Let's see if I can blow that up a little bit more. Is that a little bit better? Okay, cool. So I won't spend a ton of time here, but I'll dissect this a little bit. What Create React app is scaffolding out is effectively all the things you would need to do to cache your JavaScript, HTML, CSS, and images for your website into the browser. So this, if you have just a pure static content website, what this will do right out of the box is make it offline capable. Okay? So if you have no interactive content, or if it's interactive but just like, it bounces and you hover over it or something like that, this will save the backend for offline mode. It will make your pages way faster because it just serves them straight from a local cache rather than a server-side cache, and to make you very happy. And it took me 5 minutes worth of work to get that functioning on my little demo site. So, and so, yeah, so like a little bit here, you can see the WorkBox methods that it's calling pre-cache and route, and it's passing in this pre-cache manifest. This is some of the plumbing that happens when you use Create React App. Webpack. In Webpack, it will compile your site out. It'll generate all of the hash asset names, and it will build a pre-cache manifest for you so that when you deploy your site, you at least have some way of versioning the content of that site. Every time you redeploy, you'll have different hashed assets, and then the local service worker will automatically just keep that stuff up to date in your local browser. So, so let's keep churning here. So this is what it looks like fresh out of the box. I wanted to be a real glutton for punishment, and so I decided I would generate it with TypeScript. Okay, because who doesn't love a little more pain in their life? And so let's take a little bit of a look into what that looks like. So one of the first things I had to do, and I can dive into this later if others are interested in, but the first thing I think most of us experience if you use Create React App is about an hour into working on it, you're like, wait, I need to change how Webpack is configured. You're like, oh, but Webpack is baked into CRA. I have to inject to do that. That turns thing becomes a very nasty road. So there's a nice little tool called React App Rewire that allows you just to override individual pieces of your Webpack config and hook into if you want to tweak how your TypeScript's compiled or anything like that. So the next big decision you have to make is whether you want to use WorkBox's generate service worker or inject manifest. And if you're looking like, what does that even mean? Google has a fantastic site that gives you pros and cons of what these mean. What do these mean? So the generate service worker starting point is kind of what I described before. You take a static site, it's like, if all your stuff's just static, this will give you everything you need without anything extra. If you kind of want to go off the rails and do your own thing, then you want to inject manifest. Okay? So, wow, that is really tough to see. Okay. So then, let's look a little bit here at what happens when I want to build my site here. So I got my site, I got my main entry point for that. Get into this in a little bit, but here's the magic. Right out of the box with Create React App. It has a little function there to register a service worker, and that is what will get your service worker set up. And so you can kind of see this is all the generated code out of the template. But the real magic is basically right in here. So it's going to say, my service worker file exists here at basically my main domain /sw.js. This is not a typical JavaScript file. It is completely valid JavaScript, but you do not want to hash it. You do not want to cache it on the server side. It is a very special thing that you want to understand. That it is different than like a normal web asset. So let me just play a scenario out for you. So this service worker file, this sw.js, has all of my service worker code. It has all of the logic for how my site caches itself on a browser. So let's say I have a bug in that and I need to fix it. Okay, great. I fix it, I push my code to prod. I realize that I have been setting my expiration on my JavaScript files across my entire site with a 1-year expiration. You just screw yourself because none of the browsers then, unless somebody's smart enough to know how to clear their own local cache, that file is not going to get pulled down by the browser for 1 year until it expires. So you want to be very, very careful about what you set as expires, headers, and cache control headers on that file. You also want to make sure that because it's at the root of your site, service workers have scopes. And this kind of threw me for a loop too, but a scope, it means a service worker can only run on tabs that are at its own scope or lower. That makes sense. So because I have the SWJS file at the root of my site, it has access to any tab under my site, in my site tree. If I were to put that under, slash, static files, /JS, it actually couldn't run on any of my other tabs. It's a security thing. It's a way of allowing, making sure, if a company wants to host multiple apps under one domain, that those apps don't conflict with each other. So yeah, so that's basically how service worker gets registered. You basically wait till the browser is ready and then tell it to register. So let's keep on chugging here. So then let's build this thing. I'm going to come down here. You can kind of see that. You probably can't see that, so let me just do this. That's not going to work. All right. This is going to run my kind of standard Webpack production build. And then while that's running, what it's going to do is it's going to dump everything into this build folder, just so your compiled output of your site. You can see there's our service worker, all good to go. And yeah, so then let's go look at how this looks when it runs. So do. So I'm just going to run the site here. And there you go. Okay, so I'm a local host now. And let's just look at what's the dev experience look like for this. So you can see here, can you guys see the network tab there very easily? Or not? Is that better? Yes. All right. So when you're doing service worker development, you're going to live over here on this application tab. All right. This is where all the caches are, IndexedDB, cookies is probably what most of you have come here for. But there's this service worker tab now. And first thing you're going to do is update on reload. That way, as you're refreshing and working through this, it's going to actually refresh the site. So, and then the button you saw me push earlier, the bypass for network, that's going to allow you to say, hey, I don't care what's cached. Just go back to the server and get a fresh set. That way I can kind of keep on moving here. And then the way you kind of reset here, this is like the nuke option, but it's pretty simple. Just go in, clear the site data, and now If you go back here, any service worker version, it kind of keeps a version history here, has been like wiped from your app, okay? So what I'm going to do here is I've got the page here, and I'm going to show you what does it look like when this loads. Like, what does that kind of paradigm feel like when you're utilizing a service worker? So I'm going to refresh it, then just watch the network tab. Okay. So I've got a really slow site. It's averaging like 2 seconds for everything that hits my server. And you can kind of see like some of the stuff that's coming from a CDN is getting there pretty quick, 6 milliseconds, coming from a cache. Everything else is just it's just dog slow. Got some AJAX requests going. And then what you'll see then is after the whole site's loaded, that service worker gets registered. Here's that SWJS. And when it comes down, it starts fetching its own scripts. It fetches that pre-cache manifest that Webpack generated for us. And then it brings down WorkBox from Google's CDN. Okay, so that you can load external scripts into your service worker. And then it brings down some of its own plugins since I'm in dev mode. And then what it does is it then will run through that pre-cache manifest, and that's what these files down here are. My chunks, these are kind of standard looking Webpack output right there, and it's caching all these. And you can tell that the service worker is doing it because you got a little gear icon there. Okay. And so if I flip back over here, that slow page is now much, much snappier. If you go back and look at the page, you can see all of the stuff that my browser requested is now way less than two full seconds, and you can see it tells me it loaded it from the service worker. It never even hit the network. All right? So another cool thing that WorkBox does is while you're developing is you get these nice WorkBox statements as to what it's doing. So it's not this like black box. So you can tell, okay, it loaded and then it was pre-caching. And then I have some AJAX calls down here that we'll talk about here in a second. So it's been really nice this way. That way I can understand when something's being cached and when something isn't. And that's probably been what I found to be one of the bigger challenges when working with the service worker is, okay, just because I make a code change and I go refresh the browser, that code isn't running just yet. I kind of have to think, I have to do 2 refreshes, right? So I got to refresh to get my new service worker code loaded. Then I got to refresh again to see if the caching logic that service worker is doing is now actually working. All right. So that's why when I refreshed the first time, it was still dog slow, but the second time, it's pretty snappy. Let's see, deploying. So then one last note here too, because this bites people, is make sure you aren't hard coding like localhost anywhere. When you deploy, that will bite you. Also, the probably more likely thing that will happen to you is if your site uses multiple host names, like you have different aliases coming into your site, you need to figure out a way to dynamically pass that host name in when you register the service worker. So if you're at like, myapp.yoursite.com, but your service worker is being registered under like myinternalapp.mysite.com, they won't work. You'll get an error on that one. So little trickiness there, especially if you're like 10 layers deep inside of a, on like cloud hosting and your IT department is setting up all kinds of different URLs. You'll have to kind of do some stuff there. So now let's kind of get into maybe the meat of what I was going to talk about, and that is I've got a site that is slow. How can I do the service work to speed it up? Okay. Because while we don't like to admit it, a lot of us in the name of serving our product managers, our customers, end up shoving lots of AJAX calls into our page, which makes them just grow in their slowness. So this is all in that mission of getting that TTI, that time to interactive, down. So what I've done here, is so I wasn't completely sure exactly how reliable the network was going to be, so I did some cheating here. But effectively, what I have is a 4 AJAX requests. Firing them all off in parallel. They're all going to the same place. And I have to wait on all those to complete before my graph is ready to show. Okay? I've done this scenario a fair number of times for internal business apps. You've got like Start.js or something, and you're trying to show your CEO a dashboard. But you got to fetch a bunch of data before you can show that dashboard, right? So I'm going to fetch all that data until I got that data fetched. I'm not going to render my React app. So if we flip back here, I'm still on localhost. What I'm going to do here, clear this stuff. I'm going to wipe my service worker real quick. And reload it. And I'm going to do this. I know I did this before, but I think it's good to kind of see this multiple times. Their page kind of loaded slow, still loading. There we go. Sure. Okay. So how do I overcome this? Well, I refresh again. This. The third time, now it's snappy. Why the third time? Well, let's look at our logs. So, what happened here is first page load, we just got the service worker down. And all the service worker knew to do on the very first initial install of itself is to pre-cache the site assets. Right? That's all I had told it to do. The second refresh, I had my AJAX calls kick off, which you can see right here. But I have told the service worker to cache these AJAX calls, which is what I want to do, but the caches weren't primed yet. That second refresh is just priming the cache, just getting that data in there. The third refresh, we finally see the caches start to do something for us. Okay? And you can see it saying, basically, I intercepted this call, and I used a stale while revalidate strategy. So what does that mean? Well, if I go back over here to my network tab, and let's clear this out. Now my caches are primed. And I refresh this. What's going on here? I can get enough of these windows dragged out of the way that we can see what's going on. So the sum data is my Ajax calls, right? You can see I shot 4 of these off. The service worker intercepted those, responded with the cache value. I had 25 millisecond calls. That's awesome. And then immediately after that, you can see the service worker then sent out 4 Ajax calls in the background. And you can see each one is a nice giant stair step that makes users very, very sad. And it's refilling that cache. Okay? So this is one of what WorkBox calls a strategy. This is their safest strategy right out of the gate. Is every call you make, it's going to say, do I have a cache value? Yep. Okay, I'm going to hand you that cache value, but it's in parallel, I'm going to go back and try to update that resource at the same time. Okay? So that way, subsequent calls it's trying to keep that cache as fresh as possible. And that's why I call it the safest option out of the box. Like you're gonna have a very, very small window there where you're not effectively getting the most recent data. So let's talk a little bit more about what WorkBox strategies are. So all WorkBox strategies are, they're just wrappers around intercepting fetch requests in the browser or Ajax requests and stuffing those into the browser's cache. And these are just native things in the browser. You can manually write this code. Right? There are plenty of examples out on the internet and books of here's how to write a stale while revalidate chunk of code. But remember what I said at the beginning. WorkBox is a jQuery for service workers. Just like jQuery allowed us to not have to manually update the DOM elements or query or class selectors, it gave us really nice terse ways of doing that. That's what WorkBox is doing. It says, I have this common strategy. This is not a hard thing to think through. Make that as easy for me to do as possible. So what's that look like? I go back here. I go to my SWJS call. It looks exactly like that. So basically say I want to cache anything that, any GET request that comes through for that URL, which if you can see it, I can barely see up here with got this thing blown up so bad. It says anything that matches that, use this stale while revalidate strategy. Okay? Cool.
Yeah. Is there a way to be notified by WorkBox when it's completed? Like, for example, you do your patches, you're going to update the display, and then 2 seconds later, it's a new game, so you trigger up that instead of
yeah.
do another try and guess when it's ready.
Yep, you sure can. So the question is, like, is there a way I can wait when it does get the new data down that I can trigger an update to my UI? There definitely is. Seriously, I'm like hitting the tip of the iceberg on what service workers can do. You can do really cool stuff like send messages to all tabs at once. You can actually set up channels. It's a new API in the browser. You can have one-to-one communication with individual tabs. It's pretty sick, all of the options you can do there. I'm just exploring a very focused vein of one of these. So, and yeah, so what I don't have here, I'm kind of getting close to time here, but this is a constructor. You can pass in options and you can tune this in. You can set a custom expiration time if you want it to last for 30 seconds, 20 seconds, whatever. You can do that. In fact, actually, so let me give a little backstory here. So the goal that I was really trying to get to tonight, I'm pretty darn close, is debouncing Ajax requests. What do I mean by debouncing? I've run into many times in my life having multiple components on my web page that all end up fetching at least one of the same resource. So a common one is like pricing. I want to build components in a reusable way, but maybe each, like 4 of the components need some pricing data. And so I just never had a great way of making a reusable component, shared AJAX, one single AJAX request across those. This allows you to do that. If you have a site today and you're like, oh my God, this page is making 10 of the exact same requests, but the code is 300,000 lines and I don't know how to go in and refactor that down, you don't have to. You can come in and set up a service worker and debounce those. So, and so this is kind of a slightly more advanced example of using a different WorkBox strategy that can get you also very close to that. So this one is a cache first. So the sale while revalidate says, I'm going to hand you, if you ask me for data and I have a cache, I'm going to hand it to you, but I'm immediately go back and get it. Cache first is more aggressive. It's going to say, if you ask me for data and I have it, I'm going to give it to you and I'm just going to sit back until you manually refresh me. So, or you start getting fancy and trying to mess with expirations. One of the other things that you can do with these strategies is you can actually even put in your own custom handling logic. You can just say, actually, cache first strategy, I'm smart enough, I'm going to tell you exactly how to handle it. You can just implement the logic yourself, extending the different strategies. So, so yeah, kind of close to time here. I can, if anybody wants to stay after, I can show you what it looks like if I flip it around and use the cache first strategy. It actually does debounce them. You'll see one request go out, but then the expiration is what kind of bites you there. You got to fiddle with that one a little bit more. So yeah, and yeah, like I said, if you want your pages to be that fast, and they start out being at least 8 seconds to get there, there's a viable path to do that. Yeah, that's it for me tonight. Anything else? Nope. That's my Twitter handle. I'm on that way more than my wife would like, so if you have questions, feel free to hit me. Thanks.